Hi, and welcome to today's event, Online Tutoring, Finding Your Edge. I'm Chris Sanderson, and I will be presenting today with Mario, who will make an introduction in just a moment. But basically what I wanted to let you know is feel free to be interactive during today's event. If you have questions, you're welcome to type them into the chat at any time. And hopefully what you'll take away from today's event is a little bit of insight into how you can, in an online format, provide for the highest level of professionalism and demonstration of your expertise in tutoring. And Mario will discuss at length a little bit later on about the best marketing strategies for acquiring clients in today's online marketplace. So with that, let's go ahead and get into the introduction of today's presenters. Mario Ranchi is the founder of Manufacture, a growing marketing agency focused on helping education businesses get better value clients. And Mario's experience with real estate marketing was something that gave him the foundation for understanding how to go out and acquire business. He has since transitioned into the education marketplace, and he helps professional and high-end tutors look for clientele online by utilizing effective online marketing strategies to grow their education businesses. I am Christopher Sanderson, and my business is Sanderson Test Prep. We are a tutoring company originally based out of South Florida. We have 3 offices there. We have a location in New York, and we have recently opened up services in San Antonio, Texas. So we're a growing test prep company providing tutoring for a variety of standardized tests along with tutoring for academic subject areas, as you see listed on this slide here under my areas of expertise. So with those introductions in place, I'd like to go ahead and get things started and jump right into an analysis of some of the most effective strategies for utilizing online tutoring software. And the first one that we'll talk about here is Zoom. Zoom has very quickly become the industry standard. It's what most students are familiar with from their education this past spring when everything converted to an online experience. Zoom was the primary format in which students were interacting with their teachers and classmates in the online learning setting. So we want to make sure that if we are trying to provide that higher level of professionalism, that is a format we are fully comfortable working with and making sure that we know the ins and outs of Zoom. 2 important features that you want to make sure that you get really comfortable with because it can add to the educational experience and heighten that level of professionalism that you're able to demonstrate are the collaborative whiteboard and screen sharing options, which Zoom has in a very user-friendly format. So a few other different types of online platforms allow you to share screens or allow you to show a whiteboard where you're demonstrating the work done on a particular problem or even interacting with certain documents. But the collaborative aspect of the way that Zoom introduces this feature is actually very helpful from an educational perspective because you can work on a problem, but you can also ask a student to work on that same problem, and the 2 of you can collaborate interactively. So when you're doing tutoring online, making sure that you take full advantage of Zoom's collaborative whiteboard and screen sharing options is really important. And with that, we should have a paid account through Zoom. It's $15 a month per host for the pro account. The basic account is free, but it does limit anything with more than 2 people to 40 minutes. So if you are going to have any type of small groups, or even from a consultation perspective, if you're offering tutoring and you're trying to acquire that high-end clientele, which we're really focused on, then oftentimes you are going to offer things like a free consultation, and you will have a parent want to log in on that initial call, maybe to get to know you or to ask a few questions, or you might have at the tail end of a tutoring session, a parent say, hey, if you have an extra 10 minutes towards the end, I'd love to jump on. I'm going to be at my office, but I'd love to sign in, and maybe the 3 of us could chat, about the direction our tutoring is going. So if any of those are going to be part of your tutoring services that you offer, it makes great sense to go ahead and get the paid account. So a pro account, $15 per month per host for their basic features, but without the time limit on those small groups. is really beneficial. And you can have up to, at that account, 100 participants in a room. So it certainly makes it something that is easy enough to provide for any type of group setting that you want to introduce for students, parents, free events, etc., in order to help market and grow your business. Now, beyond the pro account, Zoom does offer some higher level accounts for businesses and enterprises, and we'll take a look at a couple of those features here. Individual. So with the business account, you can provide all those same features to your entire team. And then with an enterprise account, that is typically probably bigger than what most tutoring services would need, but that's same thing, $19.99 a month per host, but that's for a minimum of 100. So those are going to be, like $200 or $2,000 a month respectively for the business and enterprise accounts. They do offer some really cool features, but the pro account at a very base level is something that I certainly recommend for every tutoring business or every individual provider. It really is something important for us to make sure that we are able to, provide, again, just that higher level of professionalism and not put any potential obstacles in our way when it comes to offering, what we do best. Skype can work great. It's free. If students already have an account, that sometimes, works very nicely. If students are really comfortable with it and that's their preferred method of meeting, then I'm happy to hop on a Skype call. The collaborative options are not as, you can provide some workarounds there, but it's not as user-friendly to be able to collaborate with students via Skype, to be able to both of you interact on the same whiteboard. So that part's a little more cumbersome there. And then the issue with Skype that we've run into is that if students don't have an account, it tends to be a little bit hectic getting that first session underway. So when we have tried to do Skype, a lot of times it's, oh, wait, I don't have an account. Hold on, let me sign up for one. They're logging in for a session 20 minutes late. It can really be a little bit disruptive both to your schedule and to that initial session. So Skype, I would say, is kind of only a go-to if somebody already has their own account and has a very strong preference, for utilizing that platform. And then FaceTime, I really recommend that you, kind of shy away from FaceTime if you can. And the reason why I recommend this is because if someone is, if someone is using FaceTime on their computer or on their tablet and they can see you full screen and any shared documents that you're looking at together or the work that you're writing out for a problem, that you're covering, or the passage mapping that you're doing, or the brainstorming for an essay that you're going to write, whatever the subject area is, or test is that you're teaching, if they can see it full screen, that's great. But 99% of the time when a student wants to FaceTime, they end up doing it from their phone. And the fact of the matter is just, in today's day and age, there are a lot more effective ways for us to learn online than to be relegated to such a tiny screen and to have students trying to read an essay like this, holding their phone 2 inches away from their face, not being able, to see it essentially the way that they are more likely to see it, on test day or in class when they're actually on a real computer call with their teacher, or if they're taking a particular test online, or even if they're taking it on paper, it's still just visually going to be a lot easier to interact with a full screen image than it is to interact with your phone. So for FaceTime, we basically say that one's a no-no. Unless there are extenuating circumstances, to where a student has to use that as their only platform, we want to shy away from that if we can. So now let's talk about how we can visually demonstrate, our expertise. And, an important thing for us to kind of keep in mind about how we can do that is to visually demonstrate expertise. We want to make sure that we can be able to use the functionality of whatever platform we're using really effectively. So this is something, especially keeping in mind that, whether you are, a tutor with 2 years experience or a tutor with 30 years experience, the fact of the matter is that the comfort level with technology increases exponentially from generation to generation. And so if your students have this level of comfort with the technology, then we want to do our best to match that. And it can be, again, a little bit troublesome to work through some of those glitches, and a little bit frustrating on the part of the student if the student feels for whatever reason that they have to kind of walk you through, how to, oh wait, wait, how do I give you access to the same meeting that I'm in? Wait, how do I want to share like this whiteboard, but I don't know what to click on. You want to take the time to investigate those things ahead of time. Make sure that you have, your whiteboards, and you can set them up ahead of time, and have saved whiteboards where you have certain images that you want to share with students that already have certain work displayed. You can have documentation that you cover, ahead of time. So if you want to cover SAT practice test 10, because you're looking at, the first one in the College Board book, and, you want to make sure that section 1, practice test 10, you can walk through with a student because that was their homework and you're going to cover, those questions, then great. Make sure that you have that already, up on your screen, whatever kind of documentation you might need to share. Go ahead and take care of that ahead of time in front of a session so that when a student logs on, everything runs smoothly visually. They can see in front of them exactly what they need to. They have all the material. And when it comes to making sure that they have the right documentation in place, in addition to screen sharing the appropriate documentation, this is one thing that I advise tutors to do, but be very comfortable and straightforward about your expectations for what a student should print. And that's something you want to share with a student or a parent, because so many times, it can be the case where a tutor gets into a session with a student and they're trying to cover like a complex geometry question where there are some inscribed figures in a bunch of different angles, and a student is looking at it on a screen, and sometimes you can kind of tell that they don't have something in front of them that's concrete that they can write on and label those angles the way they would be able to, for example, on an SAT. So if a student's going to have a paper version of a test in front of them on test day, make sure that you ask them to print out the material ahead of time. And parents, if they think it's going to be more effective for their son or daughter to learn by printing out the material ahead of time, they'll be happy to do it. So just make sure that you are communicative about what kind of material needs to have a physical copy in front of the students so that they can work most effectively. As far as attire, I do recommend sticking with business professional attire. I think that in today's day and age of working from home, it's definitely something that it's easy to get a little complacent about. And sometimes people forget the importance of, or value of, being able to visually depict yourself as a true professional in your field. And a lot of times I think what can cause us to let our guard down a little bit as far as that goes online versus in person is that in person, when a student's coming into your office for a tutoring session, they are very commonly coming in with a little bit, of sort of sneak peek for the parent. Mom or dad drops them off. They get to say hello to you real quick. They get to see that you're dressed in professional attire, that you have that, nice looking office space, that you have, a bunch of, books on the wall, whether you're teaching chemistry or, GMAT. They can see very clearly, okay, this is someone who has experience in this subject area. I can get a sense of, their level of experience and professionalism just from, looking at, what I see here in front of me. And they don't get as much of an opportunity to view that when you're tutoring online. So you want to make sure that starting with the attire, make sure it's business professional. Make sure that a parent, even one who glances from the background where maybe they're off camera, you can't even see them, but the parent's over here just off camera, and they're just kind of peeking in, just checking to see how things are going, checking to see, what that dynamic in that tutoring session is like. Business professional attire is certainly important to make sure that you are demonstrating your level of experience and expertise as readily as possible. As far as lighting is concerned, so when we talk about front lighting versus back lighting, I just want to talk about some lighting yays and nays. I want to just show you a couple quick examples here. So when it comes to front lighting means the light that is on you. So right now, for example, if I were to turn this off, you can see that half of my face, right? And this is just a simple desk lamp, but that half of my face becomes very dark. I can turn this on, and this particular lamp has a couple different, levels of brightness. So I can adjust that and to control that lighting. So when we talk about front lighting, I have another lamp that's over here that can do, much of the same. So you can see how bright this is. And it's not a hugely bright lamp. So this is something, that is just, it's literally, if you can see that, this is a clip-on lamp that you could purchase on Amazon for 10 or 12 bucks. So it doesn't have to be something that is extremely expensive to get a setup where you can provide at least a decent enough amount of light so a student can see you clearly. And again, even if what you're doing is the whiteboard, that your face is going to show up at certain points in the call. You want to make sure that students don't have an issue, seeing you, and you want to be able to, put yourself in front of a space that is going to be effective. And then for background lighting, I use these. I have a couple LED lights. So, and this just lights up the background. So you can kind of tell the difference there. I have two of them. If I turn one on or off, you can see the difference in the lighting on the wall in the back. And so again, that's something just to keep in mind. The room I'm in right now does have a window. It is helpful if you are in a room with natural light to face the window instead of facing away from the window. If the light comes in behind you from the window, oftentimes that's where we see I like to call it the witness protection silhouette. So that's where we see, the tutor like, okay, I don't want you to know my real identity. I just want to share some information about the test. So we want to avoid that if we can. And if you do have natural light coming in, then that's great. But keep in mind too, and I'm sure a lot of you can appreciate this, but in today's age of online tutoring, the times when we meet with students are oftentimes a lot different than what we are probably accustomed to. Excuse me. So as far as the timing is concerned, if you have a session during the day, you have a lot of bright light outside, and you can light up an entire room with natural lighting, then that's awesome. But if you're not meeting at a time like that, and especially if you're getting students from different time zones, overseas, whatever the case may be, it's also really important to make sure that you're able to, have good lighting in case you are working really late at night or early in the morning when it's dark outside and you don't have the opportunity to take advantage of some of that natural light. As far as the backgrounds are concerned, so Zoom and Skype will both make it possible for you to have a virtual background. And a virtual background is really helpful as far as your branding is concerned. So your virtual background, you can put your logo on it. You can standardize it across your other teachers. So if you look at a couple samples, these are just screenshots from sessions of mine, but you can see the one on top does have a virtual background where you have the Sanderson Test Prep logo. And then, I'm writing out in session, the work that we're doing. But I use that as the virtual background so that it adds that branding element. I have another one that I'll use occasionally where I have more of a classroom background. So again, it gives a little bit more of that academic feel. So you can use a virtual background if you don't have a backdrop that you want students to see. So if you're working out of let's say a home office with branded background, or bookshelf that has all the books of your area of expertise in the background, that's a great background. But if you're working from home and maybe you have pets or kids or a spouse or a roommate or whoever it is in the background that can potentially act as a distractor, then sometimes a virtual background is a great solution for that. As far as sound is concerned, earbuds are great, but you can also have sound coming out of the computer. The one thing that I remind people of is that most of your students are going to be wearing earbuds. And so regardless of how you're conveying your voice to the students, one thing that you want to keep in mind is how are the students going to be hearing your voice. And one thing that happens a lot of times is that we forget that when you have a microphone right here next to your mouth, and then your students have an earbud that is going directly into their inner ear, the sounds, even ambient noises that we don't realize that we make, they get amplified. And it's very different than when you're in person. If I'm in person and I take a deep breath, or if I, try to, swallow, you don't hear it as significantly, right? That's a little bit more something that, is processed only internally and not really translated to the student. But when you're in someone's ear, keep in mind how loud some of those sounds can be. So when you're taking a deep breath, or, even you've heard me clear my throat a couple of times while I've been speaking today, I'm sure it came through in your ear pretty powerfully. We want to try to minimize that if we can. And so mute toggling is a good way to do that. And I'll just show you an example. So if I have to smack my lips because I just need to swallow, or, need to, clear my mouth a little bit, if I do that while I'm in a student's ear, it can be a little bit alarming and it almost piercing sound. So mute toggling just means get really comfortable hitting mute for your mic, and then you can unmute when needed. So there I just did a nice little lip smack, but muted it and then unmuted it before and after. So it's kind of like a radio broadcaster who uses a cough button, which basically will mute their mic for a brief moment in time so that you can try to prevent any of that background noise from becoming a distractor. And that becomes even more important as we add additional background noise, you know, dogs barking at a bird that they saw out the window, kids, being loud, even if you are at home, if you have a spouse who's working from home and they're on a work call, or if they're on their own Zoom meeting, just hearing a lot of that discussion in the background, it can be a little bit distracting. So we want to get comfortable muting our mics whenever we have the opportunity. And the best time to do that is when you know that a student is going to be focused on something. So, hey, let me give you 2 minutes to try this problem on your own. Mute your mic for those 2 minutes. Or if a student's going to be reading a passage, or if a student is going to be sharing their own thoughts or explanations of something, can you give me some insight into your interpretation of this passage? Hit mute and give that student a few minutes to discuss where you don't have your own background noise potentially disrupting their thought process. So those are a couple things that we can do just to make sure that the online interaction is as smooth as possible, both visually and audio, for the student. Now I want to take a look at who are these students that we are trying to impress so much. So we'll talk a little bit about higher end clientele and what does that mean? So when we say higher end, a lot of people think, oh, okay, higher end. So meaning like, our rich customers. And sure, that's a part of it that does come up. People who are paying top dollar for something are going to oftentimes be a little more demanding and have, more expectations for the service that they're receiving. But when we say higher end, in terms of students, oftentimes we're talking about students who, it's not just the dollar amount, but a lot of times it's how academically inclined or academically competitive a student might be. And it's really important for us to keep in mind that when you have, students who are really academically competitive, they're going to take tutoring more seriously. They're going to expect to get a lot out of it. And the good news is that they're also a lot more likely to do their homework. So we like that when a student is academically competitive. It can be a huge benefit and make our jobs a lot easier. But they're oftentimes going to expect the best. And let's talk about what that means when they expect the best. They want the best in terms of experience, in terms of your ability to establish rapport with the student, to really push the student to get the most out of them and to allow them to achieve, that highest goal. And so in order for us to demonstrate that, so nothing can really, sort of shortcut our way to experience, right? But once you have the experience, once you've dedicated, the years of your life to really making yourself a very high-end experienced professional tutor, how do you really demonstrate that? And right now, more so than ever, we need those concrete differentiators because as we discussed earlier, we don't always have them, when people can't come into our physical space. So a lot of times parents, the ones making the purchase decision, they don't really understand the concrete difference because they look and they just see face A versus face B on a screen talking to their student. And they don't necessarily know, well, why is this person $40 an hour? Why is this person $300? There can be a hugely wide range in cost. And a lot of people right now are stepping into the tutoring market who don't really have the experience that we have as professionals who have been doing this. So we want to see if we can provide those concrete differentiators, and we can do that at first impression and with follow-up. And I want to just show you, you can certainly approach this in your own ways, but I want to show you 2 ways that we do that at Sanderson Test Prep, just to kind of give you a sample of what that concrete differentiator might look like. So here's an example of something that we provide with each student. When a student comes to us, they get a new student prep plan. And these are overlaid images, so you might not be able to see all of the data, but don't worry about that. I'm always happy to send any of you a sample of this if you'd like to take a look. We do offer this and license it out, to tutoring companies. So if you wanted to brand it with your own branding and, utilize, our platform for that, we do have a few different things that we can, help you out with. And that's, a conversation I'm happy to have. So if anyone has questions on that or wants to explore that, please feel free to reach out. But basically, a new student plan is a very helpful way to show a little bit of structure heading into prep. So we have students, they fill out a Google Doc and it asks them some important questions that we want to know. Some of it's biographical, so we keep track of just, the student information, name, address, email, phone number, and same for the parents, so we can make sure that we're able to stay in contact. And then we take a look at any target scores that they have in mind. If it is test prep, it's a little bit different, when it comes to academic subject tutoring. But for test prep, we look at target scores. We try to establish a testing timeline. We give them specific dates where we would recommend that they take practice tests on these dates throughout their prep. And then we offer them prep recommendations, and those recommendations are adjusted based on the amount of score improvement that a student wants to achieve. So if a student wants to, go up 50 points and they have 6 months to do it, then that's a lot different program, than if a student wants to go up 250 points and they have 2 months to do it. So we, tailor the prep recommendations to the amount of improvement that a student wants to see. But this is something that when they fill out that Google Doc, it'll auto-populate this PDF document that gets generated and emailed to our students so that they have that structure in place so that when we start tutoring, whether it's ourselves or one of our team members, we can hit the ground running, right off the bat. Up next, we have a tutoring log. And this is basically, what you're seeing in a tutoring log is an overview of each session. So it just says, what subject area we're covering, when we met, how long we met, when we're going to be meeting next, how much of the homework was completed, what's the homework for next time. Gives them a couple helpful tips. But this for us, through our program, it gets automatically sent to student, parent, teacher, and myself. So if it's not myself doing the teaching, if it's one of my team members, then I still want to see those tutoring logs. I still want to stay up to date on how each of our students is performing. And it helps keep everybody in the loop because so much of student success really comes down to what they're doing outside of sessions, not just in a particular session. So this is just a sample of something concrete, again, that we can provide that acts as that differentiator and provides that follow-up. So, okay, we have a session on Wednesday at 11 a.m. Our next session is next Wednesday at 11 a.m. That's a full week later. I don't want a student or a parent to go through a full week being confused as to what they should be working on. I want to make sure everybody has that information provided to them readily available so that they can refer back to it as needed. The parents can help the student keep on track, and we can make sure that, we're going to see success, out of that student as they progress through their prep. All right, so with that, I want to hand things over to Mario, who is going to talk a little bit more about, not just how we can provide a high level of service to our high-end clientele, but how do we go about getting that high-end clientele, and how do we get our foot in the door to develop some of these relationships. So with that, Mario, I'll hand things over to you.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, thanks very much, Chris. Good overview so far. So basically, what we need to figure out before we go and we start doing any marketing tactics immediately is to figure out what the unique selling point is, right? So this is what makes someone picks you over all of the other options, is the reason why people should buy from you. Usually it is within a sentence that you can tell what it is, basically. So the two things that you need, basically, to create a unique selling point is first figure out what's the market demand, right? You want to be finding market demand that is going to solve an urgent problem, right? You want to find something like in regards to like heart surgery versus stub toe. You want to find something very complex and very problematic in parents or your ideal client's daily life, points to an urgent problem, right? And so you want to be the expert that can only solve that one thing, right? Versus the stub toe, which is kind of like the generalist. You can kind of, fix things pretty quickly. It's not as urgent. So there's not much need to invest money in it immediately. Okay. And then there's the valuable transition, right? So after that is, when, basically when people want to get out of a problem, it's because they want to go to someplace else, right? So think of it as, you're traveling and you know that you've arrived at your destination, right? So every time you travel, if maybe you're thinking about, oh, I'm in Washington, D.C., but I want to get to Chicago, it's the same thing here, right? I have a very difficult problem here. I want to get to a very specific outcome here, right? And when you arrive at your destination, you usually know when you've arrived. The plane lands and everything is fine, and you kind of know, oh, I've got to Chicago. I'm at this place, right? It's the same thing here. You need to be able to show them or describe to them what they're actually getting, and they can actually believe it. They can see it in their mind when they're looking at your unique selling point or when they're looking at your content or whatever that includes that in it. Okay, so a simple template I use with most of my clients is very simple. I help niche based on problem, right? You want to be niching based on the problem. You want to say specifically what is the group of people that have the problem that we're trying to solve, right? So I'm parents that are not prepared for a very specific type of test, right? We're not focusing on like, oh, if they're a lawyer, if they're a paralegal, if they're a doctor, right? We don't care about that as much because parents aren't going to buy based off just their demographics, the way their services or their titles are. It's going to be mainly because of their problems, their day-to-day issues. Okay, solve big problem, right? We describe the problem to get to outcome, right? And this can always be refined further. For an example, in this case, one of my clients, helping parents whose child isn't prepared for the 11 plus exam prepare and pass the test to get a grammar school offer can be refined into preparing your kids for the 11 plus exams to get offers to grammar schools, right? So it's a simple sentence. You kind of cut all the fluff out, but it's good to start with a rough idea with the template first and then move on and create a very succinct version of it. Okay. Next is, after we figure out the USP, we need to understand what is going to be the USP used for. It's going to be used to guide the way you look and talk online, basically, right? You want to imprint a memory of what people know you by. So this becomes a shortcut in their brain to recognize you from other tutors and other options, basically, right? And other options can include doing it themselves, using free resources, than the things that they're similar to the things that you do online, right? Or do with your students, right? So people categorize things in their mind based off groups and categories. So if they're looking at a Wyzant or they're looking at a Tutor Me or a Chegg's Tutor, they're grouping them all and like saying these are platforms, okay? And then for like other tutors that are just subject matter tutors, like they're a bunch of math tutors, algebra tutors, etc., you're grouping them all together within that subject matter. Oh, those are subject matter specific tutors for math, right? And so what happens is if you're the person who is stuck in that place, you get compared to everything else. So that's what the unique selling point is so powerful for. And so that's what you want that to happen, because then it becomes a shortcut. It means the brain can see exactly, oh, that's different than all these different things. And I should pick this instead of all those different things. Okay. And so that becomes the memory in their mind. That becomes the thing they know you as. Okay. And you can do this for two ways: visuals, which is images or colors that are present in your online presence; voice, how your written text sounds, right? What's the personality? Is it casual? Is it friendly? Is it professional? What is it, right? So those are the two ways to do things with online presence. And an example of online presence, a bad online presence, here's one of my clients, a French tutor. And she, when we first started with her, she had all these different things in her profiles and her social media profiles and her site. It was all over the place, right? She had exam prep, she had speaking casually, French, all this type of stuff. So we had to narrow it down really well in order for these things to communicate that unique selling point, right? Because at this point, it's all confused, and it can be confusing to a potential client who comes in and sees this, and they're like, oh, I don't know. I mean, for online of a native, and I see this here and all these options, I'm confused. So they go away and they don't ever see your online presence again. So, yep. And so a good uh, example of online presence is basically this. I redid everything for her. I made sure that everything was consistent with one singular message, right? We want one thing for them to be taken away from everything else. So in this case, it's helping advanced French speakers keep and improve their French to talk confidently, right? So the big problem was losing French, right? These are advanced speakers and they're losing their French, right? And they came from all different backgrounds. They came from self-employed backgrounds. They came from business backgrounds, came from just regular people, just trying to travel and to France one time, all of it. So you can see it's not about the demographic again; it's all about the problem. You can see throughout this entire thing, you can see that the message is the same all around. The colors are the same for the most part. There's little variations to keep excitement up, to show that, there's like differentiation, variation. There's testimonials to give social proof about what you do and proving everything that is your unique selling point. Okay. So now we're going to talk about a few couple ways to actually generate the clients, right? So you've got your online presence now. Next is the thing to actually generate the clients, right? So there's two ways to generate clients. So the first way, directly, right? When I say direct, I mean proactive ways to do things, right? You're not waiting for anybody to come to you, like word of mouth. So this is direct ways to do things. So direct messaging. It can be confusing at first to think, well, why would I direct message? Because sometimes the ethical standards of direct messaging has fallen throughout the years, especially without any um, any empathy, any ethics and whatnot, and that can kind of turn you off. But in this case, it's very important to just do this strategically so that you can get relevant to your target market, find using Instagram or LinkedIn. So hashtags for Instagram or for LinkedIn, keywords, job titles, services, right? People will call themselves CEOs, partners, self-employed, all this type of stuff. They will name them by their demographic. Versus Instagram will be more about lifestyles and it will be about, hey, all this type of stuff. Mom struggles, high school struggles, all this type of stuff. There's going to be lifestyles and pointing to the problem. Okay, and then talk to them, right? Just message them, connect with them, whatever. First, compliment them, right? Lead with a compliment, right? Be a genuine compliment about what they do. Then pitch them, tell them what you do and why it's important to them. And then have a following up question, which is basically just saying, hey, how are you doing with this issue? How are you doing with that issue? What's the process of this going on with you, right? This allows them an invitation to talk to you, right? And so once you understand the issue, you get them on a call, you do a free assessment with them or whatever you do as, when you get a client on the call, then you track how many messages it took to get to a response, to a call, and finally a client. This gives you a clear pattern of results, and you can repeat those actions to get more and more clients. Okay. Next thing. So just an example of direct methods. This is one of my clients just using a direct method. He was experimenting himself with what he was doing. So this is a very rough message, but basically got a response from somebody and the parent responded with, currently he's homeschooling, but he has mild autism and his mathematics skills are not the best, da, 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 da. And so my client engaged him more to get him a call afterwards. So you can see the leading with the compliment, telling them what to do, asking about the current situation. Very simple. The next way is of direct methods of generating clients is the one-page site, which I use with all my clients. Is a simple one-page site with no other things other than the goal to get someone to book a call with you, and it follows a traditional copywriting structure. Which, if you don't know what copywriting is, it's words that sell, basically, right? So through the structure is first the hook. How would you like to do X without Y? I use this a lot because it shows them they can get the outcome, of the unique selling point without having the trouble of whatever it is. And that's very appealing to people because they want to avoid pain, right? More people want to avoid pain than they want to actually get to pleasure, right? Carrot versus stick, right? And then pains, right? Does this sound like you? Are you having X issue? Are you having a problem, right? Get into the conversation in their mind and talk about what they're dealing with day to day. Then is the unlikely hero story, right? I stumbled into it. I figured it out. It wasn't possible now. I destined to fail. I came out of success, right? The rags to riches stories is a similar way of doing that, but people only listen to rags to riches stories because it's the key element of coming out of something really bad and then coming out of it in a desolate place and then coming out to something amazing, right? So that's the whole theme of rags to riches stories, and that contrast allows people to believe in themselves when they read like me, I could probably succeed too, right? And then after that is proof and evidence, right? These are papers, report cards, video testimonials, whatever way you want to show the evidence. There's many ways to do that, right? And this will be good because this will allow people to not only just get emotionally involved in you, but now they're having the logic part of their brain also activate and say, oh, this actually could be something that I need, right? Process, what I actually do, your nuts and bolts thing. um, what is your step-by-step process to get them to that outcome that we described in the unique selling point. Call to action, which is basically telling them to book a call, to are you ready to do this, all this type of stuff, urging them to get into a call to action and whatnot. But before the call to action, I missed a step, but it's called future pacing, right? And future pacing is basically telling them to imagine the possibilities of that before the call to action, right? So imagine what you can do with this. Imagine getting you to your desired outcome, right? And then the final step, which is the most important step, is to drive the traffic to the site. And this is done many ways: posting with link site in group, posting in groups with a link to your site if they allow it, right? Direct messages, which make sure you're reaching a lot of people and those people are interested in you or see your profile, and then they go and click your site and then they are turned into a client through that way. There's many ways from that. So that's the direct methods. Okay, an example of that, as you can see, clients, Rob, he's from the UK, he's 11 plus 2. tutor. And what you can see here is that something that's actually right for them because it actually has the things that they need to get to the outcome. And you can see here that Rob was, I set a booking appointment app to the site when they click the red button at the end so that the client can see the actual lead coming in and they can see, the description of the client saying, my son needs help with creative writing. Can you help him? Right. And qualified clients, high end clients will usually leave a description, a more detailed description, because they're very interested in the problem to be solved. Okay. And finally is the long-term methods of generating clients, right? So we're going to go into the thing where most people think of when it comes to marketing, right? And the most thing that comes to when people think of marketing is content marketing, is the thing that is, oh, post content and then people will know who you are. But the problem with that is, again, it's not as predictable as the other aspects, and again, it takes a long time to, you know, get a steep curve on, right? It becomes an exponential effect, right? So there's many ways to do content marketing the right way, and from what I've learned from these type of content types are really powerful. So aggravating pain, right? It makes your potential client aware of their pain to take action, right? People go in their daily lives, they're complacent, they don't want to think about their problems. If you've ever gone to, try to fix your car, there's always a thing like, oh, I'll get it fixed later. Oh, I do probably need to get this to the mechanic, but I'll just put it off for now, right? So that's your target market for the most part. Most people are like that. So what you do with aggravating pain is you make the problem aware in their mind, right? So that to the point that they do take action on that, right? And it kind of follows the similar structure of what we talked about in the one-page site, but it shows it in a content format. Next is thought leadership, right? So questioning commonly held beliefs and making predictions about the future. So first, you need to question commonly held beliefs, things that you think are normal, things you think or people think are normal and you think aren't, and you have evidence to back that up. Make an article about that. Make something about that, right? And then making predictions about the future. If you think some industry is going a particular way, make various predictions. One of those predictions will be right based off that fact. But the fact that you're able and confident enough to make predictions, that will be really good for you because you're seen as a thought leader, someone who's moving forward the industry in a direction to the future, basically. And then what you can do is record for a month which content post is the best. You can use a spreadsheet, you can use a software, whatever it may be. Just use that to record what's working and what's not. Then use that to create variations of which ones best. Note that down and understand why was that good, and then you can break it down into different things, right? So for example, if you make a post on difficulties of learning English, you can turn each parts of the difficulties of learning English into maybe getting grammar right or colloquialisms or whatever. You can break it down into further steps, right? Instead of just you have the big topic and you can break it down. Okay, and then post those variations and keep track of the results and over again. Okay, an example of this is um, a piece of content that one of my clients did. Again, it hook, lead in, pain of making mistake, what not how, following the similar formula, and you can see it gets a lot of comments and even polarizes the audience. Right? You can see that in this statement, it's like parents are taking education too seriously, right? And then somebody comes in and says, I disagree with this, but it doesn't matter because engagement is all that matters for social media. And if you want attention on yourself and to get clients, that's very powerful because people are just going to, comment on that and polarize your content. First, you're going to polarize your content, and second, you're just going to get a lot of people talking about your content and yourself. Okay, so that's it.
Perfect. And I'll leave this contact info up here so that anyone can reach out to Mario or myself to follow up with any questions that you might have. But I did want to have an opportunity to kind of open it up for a little bit of Q&A. So for right now, just to facilitate things and make it sort of as smooth as possible, so that we don't have too many voices at the same time. I'll still leave everyone muted. If you can type in any questions that you have into the chat. And then, if you do have a question and you want to ask it, I'm happy to unmute so that we could discuss a little further. While we're waiting on, a couple questions, to come in, one thing that I did want to reemphasize about something that Mario mentioned is that being able to figure out who your target market is, and then I think probably more importantly, which I think sometimes I know that it was an error that I made early on that I have gotten much better about over the years. But is figuring out who your target market is not, is just as important, and that ties into that unique selling point. Is you know blank test prep, right? So a lot of the people on this call, it's add last name and test prep after it, and that's your business. And so when it's blank test prep, who are we looking for, and who are we not looking for? And something that I think is a relevant kind of experience that I had with that. I hired someone to do SEO, search engine optimization, for Sanderson test prep several years ago, and we went from getting a relatively small number of calls a month of potential new students who were interested in the services that we offered. We started getting almost 400 calls a month from doing the SEO. And that sounds great, right? Right off the bat, you go, oh, that's awesome. 400 calls a month. That's a lot more than 10 or whatever, it would typically be. And so you go, okay, well, that's amazing. You're crushing it. You're getting so much more traffic, through these calls. But what we hadn't spent enough time doing is really figuring out the specifics of what we're offering and who we want to market that to, because 99% of those people calling either couldn't afford our services, or maybe our office wasn't as convenient to them as like they would have liked it to be back in the days when students used to come in and do tutoring in person, if you can remember that. But it was one of those situations where it seemed like such a great thing initially, and then I very quickly realized that admin wise, we are spending so much time fielding calls from people who are inquiring about our services that aren't going to end up converting into clients. So we needed to revisit, what is that USP? What is that unique selling point? And who is it specifically that we want to share that unique selling point with, who will be interested in what we bring to the table? And so in an SAT and ACT tutoring context, just because I know that that's an example that's relevant to, to a few people here, that we can kind of like, see that concretely. If somebody wants to go from an 1100 to 1150, like, to be honest with you, Sanderson test prep is not the right fit. It's just not, because there are less expensive ways that you can accomplish that goal. If somebody wants to go from a 1480 to a 1540, that's a different story. That's where I think we really have something to offer. Or if somebody wants to go from an 1100 to a 1450, in a huge jump like that, again, I think that we have the experience and we have the teachers and the team that can provide, that kind of comprehensive test prep. But for that 1100 to 1150 customer, that's someone who I want to be calling someone else, because I know that we would call and we would still give them the same amount of attention, same amount of time, and focus on them just as much, and try to provide as many answers as we can, and then probably not end up seeing any turnaround in terms of conversion into business at the end of the day from that customer, because there are other ways for that particular customer to find what they need. So unique selling point is a really important thing, to make sure that you keep in mind in terms of, being able to market, yourselves effectively, to your students. And I'll pose a question. What has been the biggest challenge with converting everything to strictly online? What has been the biggest challenge for each of you, as far as, it comes to that initial engagement? When you have that incoming call, is there something that happens, differently now than what you've experienced previously? Are people asking different kinds of questions? Are there novel questions that, you haven't yet, thought about or had to think about? Distrust and disbelief. Okay. So yeah, Rob typed in distrust and disbelief. And I think that's a good one. I think that, goes back to something that, I mentioned a little bit early on about, we have fewer of those concrete differentiators now. Someone's not coming into our office. They're not sitting in our reception area. They're not seeing, the materials on the wall, the classroom, the dry erase board, the desk, the academic surrounding, and they don't get to walk in and go, oh, wow, this place is really geared for this. I feel comfortable here. We don't have that opportunity. So it is a little harder, over the phone or online, to to figure out how to handle that, kind of inherent level of, distrust or disbelief that people, experience when they're looking at something online. Mario, do you have any, like tips for that specifically as to, how people can address the distrust, that some people naturally have when they read something online? A lot of people just read something online and assume it's not real. It's fake, or, it's an exaggeration. So how do we combat that?
Yeah, exactly. That's the biggest thing, and I think if you want to be, really good at generating clients, you got to understand that your client may be the most skeptical person ever, the most just overly skeptical. Maybe has been burned before, maybe has, had problems before, what was promised way too much and then didn't get the thing that they wanted, all this type of stuff. So you need to prove to them, just like it's an almost like an argument, but more like a friendly argument. Um, you know, what it is that you can bring to the table that's different from all this type of stuff, right? Different than all this stuff that people put online, which is, oh, I do subject matter, I teach this. Like, but I really, for the most part, if I'm a parent, I don't really care if you teach math. I just want to make sure that my child is okay and that he's actually going to learn the thing that you said he was going to learn, you know. And that's it. And if you can prove that through the testimonials, right, the social proof, the various you can even show experience in a way that doesn't need to be like saying I am an experienced person. You can show diplomas, you can show, like you said, books, right, all this type of stuff, and actually do it online. Take pictures, right, and put that on your site. Show them that you are actually of a valuable person.
Yeah, and Amy has a good point. That she typed into the chat saying that we are all reduced to what we can accomplish for students. And I think that, that's something too, that data in general, Mario, you mentioned it when you talked about tracking. Okay, if you're doing direct messaging, great. How many messages do you have to send out to get a response? What kinds of messages get the most responses? Like, send out 100 messages. If you get 7 responses to one message and 11 responses to another, it sounds like such a small difference, but like that's a 4% increase. That's significant. When you're expanding that out across weeks or months or years, imagine if all of us could just improve our bottom line by 4%, like, just by recognizing like what specific techniques. And you want to do the same exact thing when you are trying to create those measurables in students. So if it's subject tutoring, all right, what's the average either grade improvement or GPA improvement, or, test score improvement, for the students that you worked with? When it comes to test prep, what's the average length of time a student has prepped, average improvement, maximum improvement, minimum improvement? What can people really expect? And it's helpful if we have data on that, because it's a question that will come up. And the fact of the matter is that it really is not a good enough answer for high-end clientele to say it depends. And the realistic answer most of the time is it depends, right? So well, how much is my student going to improve on his SAT if he works with you? Well, it depends. Depends on what? Well, where is he starting? Where does he want to end up? Is he going to do his homework? Is he prepping for 3 weeks? Is he prepping for 3 months? Is he prepping for 3 years? Like, what math is he taking this year? Has he already completed Algebra 2 or not? That's a big impact on whether or not a student's going to be able to get over a certain level in terms of their SAT, math score. Like, there's a lot of things that go into how much someone's going to improve, or like what kind of grade someone is going to receive, than, just your ability to teach them the material. But you want to track those things so that you have concrete things that you can share with parents, and try to compartmentalize it and categorize it as much as you can. So students who complete less than 40% of their homework that I assign them see minimal grade improvement, if any. Students who complete between 40 and 80% of their homework I assign them see an average of a 1-letter grade improvement in the subject that I'm teaching them in. Students who complete more than 80% of their homework see an average of, like a grade and a half improvement. If you were, at a low B, you can get to a high A. Like, if people are looking, at like concrete measurables, they're much more likely to comfortably make a purchase decision. And it's very hard, but a lot of times we forget to do that, because each of you knows that you're a great tutor, and you are. I feel confident in that just by the sheer fact that you're in some of, the groups that, like we posted, the link to this webinar in, just by the fact that are looking to work with people like myself or Mario to, like, better yourself or your business. That the fact that you're looking to, establish that professionalism to a higher degree means that you are great because you're dedicated to it and taking it seriously. But taking that extra little bit of time to really create those measurables, you'd be surprised at how valuable that data can really be, for you. So definitely keep in mind, like the importance of tracking everything from student performance to, and to Mario's point, from a marketing perspective, keep track of that. What's working for you, what's not. And then from a teaching perspective on my end, keep track of where students are performing well, where they're not. Other questions? And I'll give everyone the opportunity at the moment. I'll unmute just, or ask to unmute. So if you want, to say a question, you certainly can. I, certainly don't have to, but, just that way, at least, we can make that a little easy to answer these last couple questions, before Mario and I give our final little sign off. Any last minute questions popping in anyone's minds? All right. So with that, Mario, can you let everyone know, sort of how they, can work with you, and if they want to follow up with you, what types of services, that you'd be able to, help people out with, and, I'll follow up and do the same. But if you want to, just go ahead and start and give a little more insight. I mean, obviously you have, the marketing background and knowledge base, to help, tutors expand their business. But if you can talk a little more logistically about, what you might be able to help someone with who's, looking for a little assistance, kind of getting over that hump.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is what I've detailed here is like I first help you figure out the unique selling point. And that's done through various, like, 1 or 2 day strategy sessions. And then I help you build out that, online presence, which is, how does that, going to look like, the site, everything. I help build all that out. And, finally give you everything that you need to actually take the actions to actually bring the traffic over to that site to get people into you to having conversations and to have clients, basically. That's it.
Perfect. And then, to my end, I have my own tutoring business, and you guys have yours. But, my role here in terms of being able to, try to help you grow your business is, any of the, automation side of things, the concrete differentiators, that we talked about side of things. Do you have a tutoring log? Do you have an enrollment agreement that people sign when they sign up for tutoring? Does it set expectations as to, what the student's role is, what the parent's role is? Do you have a new student prep plan, that can be completed? So you can create all of those things. I've created all of those things, on my end from scratch. And if anything, to be honest with you, I would encourage you to create those on your own, because it's, it's good to, kind of put thought into, what kind of, student plan makes sense for you. What kind of information do you really want, or do you really care about? But if you did want something that is, already completed, and you wanted to, take advantage of, I don't want to spend the next 5 or 7 years really, optimizing these things. I don't want to sit down in, I don't know, meetings with attorneys to pick out, the kind of language that I want in an enrollment agreement. I don't want to, have to develop the coding software to convert, the answers from a Google Doc into a 7-page PDF that creates a new student plan on its own, or, to have tutoring logs that will automatically invoice and, pay my teachers, or whatever it is that, is the service that you're looking for. If you want a way to take advantage of it in, sort of short order, then that's my role here is, to, we do have that software in place, and I'm happy to, talk with you about the opportunities that we have to license it out, where you can still use it for your own companies, your own logos, your own branding. We don't want to take over your tutoring business, but if we can provide a tool that, is something that you can utilize to add that extra level of professionalism, then, that's what we're here for. So whether you're looking to acquire new clients, and reach out to Mario to schedule that call where, you can really make that possible, or if you're looking to, provide, more of the like back end tutoring specifics, like through me, I hope that you guys reach out. And if it's just to reach out to chat and ask a question, or network and figure out, ways that we can, all share ideas. I think that's a lot of the reason, and Mario, you can tell me your thoughts or back me up on this if you will. But I think that both of us are certainly open to discussion. I think that, the more that we're able to share ideas, the better we can make all of our services, So I think, definitely don't be shy. Reach out to each of us anytime, whether it's a call, text, email, visit our site, schedule, like a more formal call. We can set up, our own little Zoom meeting, whatever you guys want to do. We're here to provide that.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's because, I mean, I think this is great because it's just like an industry-wide thing, right? Everybody, needs help with this, maybe it's the technology aspects, maybe it's the marketing aspects of things, but at least that's good because now that we can, help them out there and then they can help others out, and it's like a domino effect. So it's really good. Yeah, also another thing for anyone who's on the call still, just let me know, any feedback that you, possibly, because we might do some of these in the future. So what other topics you might be interested in hearing, right? We want to hear from you guys.
Exactly. Yes, definitely. Keep us, you know, um, in the loop as to what, your wants and needs are, because a lot of them might be things that, to us, maybe we think in our heads, oh, well, that seems like it would be, kind of intuitive or easy for, a tutor or a tutoring company to handle. And then, it might be something that you say, actually, no, this is an area where I'm really lost. And maybe, maybe Mario has some experience in that area. Maybe I have some experience in that area. Maybe we can, provide some insights. So, definitely don't be shy, about reaching out. And we'll definitely keep in touch. We'll follow up in a couple days, with an email. We'll send you the recording of today's event, and we'll let you know any other upcoming events that either of us have going on, that we can make sure to share with you. So with that, I will sign off for today. We hope all of you have a wonderful rest of your day or night, depending where you are. And please keep in touch, and we look forward to continued collaboration.
See ya.
Take
Bye.
care, everybody.